Let's jump right into this. Welcome to our 3D clinic setting for today's explainer. Look, whether you're a brand new parent, a seasoned caregiver, or just really into the science of child development, you know exactly how incredibly overwhelming the baby product market can be. It feels like every single day there's a brand new gadget promising to magically fix everything. But today, we're cutting through the noise and looking at the hard science. We're going to break down 7 massively popular baby products that you literally do not need. Think of this as your science-backed guide to do 2 super important things: keep some of your hard-earned cash in your wallet, and way more importantly, protect your little one from unintended harm.
It's a pretty heavy question, isn't it? Are popular baby products actually harming your child? I pose this to you warmly, but we have to take it seriously. The marketing aimed at parents is just relentless. It preys right on that instinct to give your kid the absolute best. But what if the best is actually working against you? What if the very things we are told we absolutely must buy are actually introducing risks? Well, that is exactly what pediatrician Dr. Anuradha HS has brought to light, and we're going to unpack all of her expert analysis right now.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll kick things off with the parenting money trap. Then we'll look at outdated traditions and dangerous feeding myths. After that, we'll dive into products that actually delay physical growth, and we'll wrap up with why less is totally more for babies.
All right, let's start with our first section, the parenting money trap, and why it is definitely time to stop wasting your money.
The big, fundamental takeaway from our pediatrician source is super simple. Stop wasting your money on items that cause more harm than good. The whole goal of this explainer is to empower you. We want to give you the exact knowledge you need to keep your baby safer while, keeping your money right where it belongs.
Moving right along to our first specific category of products, outdated traditions hurting babies. Specifically, we're talking about Kajal and baby powder.
It's kind of wild to challenge practices that have been passed down for literally generations, mostly just out of habit rather than science. Let's look at baby powder first. Sure, it smells amazing, but it actually leads to chest congestion and real breathing difficulties in those sensitive, tiny lungs. And then we have Kajal, which is often applied right around a baby's eyes. The science is clear here. This can cause really serious eye allergies and infections. Applying these traditional items is just an absolute no-no. Okay, next up, we shift our focus to internal health. This is Section 3, Dangerous Feeding Product Myths, where we'll unpack the truth about Nibblers, Gripe Water, and feeding bottles.
Let's tackle the fruit nibbler. The marketing tells you it's this perfectly safe, mess-free way for your baby to taste fruit. But reality check. When a baby uses a nibbler, they are pretty much only getting the juice. They are missing out entirely on vital dietary fiber. And actually, it's worse than that. It literally stops the baby from learning crucial feeding skills like biting and chewing. It's basically an artificial shortcut that just hinders their natural development.
Now, another heavily marketed go-to is Gripe Water. Generations of stressed-out parents have reached for this to soothe a fussy baby, but we really need to break down the risks. First off, it contains herbs that can actually be harmful to a delicate infant system. Second, and this is a huge one, there is exactly zero scientific evidence that it actually does anything helpful for the baby. It's just a myth. Plus, some of the older preparations floating around out there actually pack in sugar, and in some crazy cases, even a little bit of alcohol. You absolutely do not need this product.
Before we hit our final feeding product, we've got to clearly define a really important term: nipple confusion. This happens when a baby realizes it's way easier to just take milk from a bottle, which then totally messes with natural breastfeeding. The artificial flow of a bottle changes how the baby feeds, and that brings us right to our next major hazard.
So, the hard truth here is that the feeding bottle, which is pretty much viewed as the ultimate baby essential, is actually packed with issues. According to our expert, it's one of the top items you need to rethink. Not only does it create that nipple confusion that derails breastfeeding, but it physically harms the baby by increasing the risk of infections and causing dental cavities. It essentially makes getting milk too easy, completely bypassing the natural mechanics of feeding. At the end of the day, it does way more harm than good for a baby's oral and overall health.
We are now cruising into our final group, Section 4, Products Delaying Physical Development. Walkers, mittens, and shoes are totally sold to us as these helpful little tools. But let's see what the science actually says.
A baby's body is like a finely tuned machine, and its biomechanics naturally develop through a very specific progression, first crawling, then standing, cruising, and finally walking. They absolutely need to go through every single one of these steps to build the right strength and coordination. But when you plop a baby into a walker, you interrupt all of that.
Instead of giving them a head start, a walker actually delays independent walking. And that delay isn't just about them taking their first steps a few weeks later. It's a major issue of physical mechanics. Walkers can cause a really serious problem called toe walking. Basically, the design of the walker forces the baby into an entirely unnatural posture. The baby learns to just sort of push themselves around on their tiptoes, rather than developing the proper heel-to-toe foot mechanics they need to walk on their own. It is a textbook example of a product actively fighting against natural human development.
Now, what about those tiny baby mittens? The marketing tells us we absolutely need them so the baby doesn't scratch their face. Sounds reasonable, right? Well, the truth is actually kind of scary. First, those things can slip off, become an instant choking hazard. But crucially, they stop the baby from sucking their own fingers, which, believe it or not, is an incredibly important mechanism for sensory development. By constantly covering up their little hands, you're literally cutting off one of the main ways they explore and understand the world.
And hey, while we're on the subject of covering things up, let's look at the truth about baby shoes. Those tiny, super expensive little sneakers? Adorable, no doubt about it. But they are completely unnecessary for infants who aren't walking yet. Shoes really only come into play when the baby actually begins to walk outside. If you're just worried about their feet getting cold, you absolutely do not need stiff shoes that restrict how their feet move. The science-backed advice here is simple. Just use soft socks or booties. They keep the feet nice and warm without messing with natural movement.
Which brings us nicely to our final section. Less is more for babies. This is where we protect both their health and your savings account.
I want to leave you with this core philosophy from our pediatrician advisor, Dr. Anuradha H.S. She says, share this with every new parent who wants to protect their baby and also save money. It is so empowering to realize that being an amazing parent doesn't actually mean buying every single product lined up on the shelf. In fact, skipping these 7 items, the walkers, the baby powder, Kajal, fruit nibblers, gripe water, unnecessary mittens, and premature shoes, is hands down the most scientifically backed, safest choice you can make for your kid.
So, we've totally busted 7 major myths today. But man, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other so-called baby essentials sitting in our online shopping carts right now are just pure marketing myths? I highly encourage you to keep questioning things, keep looking at the actual science, and always remember that when it comes to your baby's physical development, nature usually has the absolute best design. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.